CUFFY250 is an African-Guyanese organization dedicated to the empowerment and revitalization of the African-Guyanese community through public education and community engagement. The forum was organized by the CUFFY250 committee and was under the theme African-Guyanese Self-Realisation Challenges for the Next 50 Years. There were speeches from a number of different representatives as well as music and drumming. Mr. Granger spoke about the United Nations General Assembly Proclamation 2015-2024 on the International Decade for People of African Descent. He said 20 months have passed and the clock is ticking.
20 months have passed. We only have another 100 months for this decade. And for us, to ask the United Nations to declare a year and realize that the objectives of that year have not been fulfilled, you ask them to declare a decade. And what happens if you don't fulfill the objectives of the decade? You'll ask them to declare a century. So we have to make this decade work for the people of African descent.
In order for the International Decade for People of African Descent to work, African-Guyanese must work together to ensure the enjoyment of economic, social, cultural, civil, and political rights through full and equal participation in all aspects of society. The President said racial discrimination must come to an end and the need for job creation and access to education for all citizens must come to fruition.
And many of us here, of course, have had the benefit of education. You've seen the benefits of education. So we have an obligation, just as our illiterate foreparents 178 years ago saw the benefits of education. We, their educated descendants, can do no better than to ensure that every single child goes to school and stays in school.
According to the coalition leader, the APNU plus AFC government is committed to implementing 5 of the activities that the United Nations has approved for the decade. He said the colonial masters must apologize for the agony meted out to people of African descent. Germany has apologized to the Jews for the Holocaust, while Britain has done so to the Mormons for torture. But according to President Granger, apologizing to people of African descent is proving difficult for Europe.
But this is a hard thing. And the Caribbean governments are insisting on an apology because a crime has been committed. And they must say, we are sorry.
President Granger also called for the revival of village economies. November 7 has been declared the National Day of Villages. Mr. Granger further stated that villages were cradles not only of a free economy, but an economy which gave rise to village market, that village movement was also the cradle of local democracy because villagers learned to run their own community. And then Mr. Granger made this awe-dropping announcement.
It is the intention of this government to establish a lands commission in order to rectify the anomalies and resolve the controversies which up to now still surround thousands of hectares of communal lands which were purchased with hard cash in the post-emancipation village movement.
Andrew Wicks reporting for Safe TV2 Headline News.